Hey guys, so we are doing area and perimeter this week. So I have a project that I want you to work on. And what we're going to do is you are going to find the area and perimeter of your name, specifically the area and perimeter of each letter of your name. So to do this, what we need are squares. Now, since area is measured in square units, the first thing we have to do is we have to create your name using squares. How are we going to do this? Well, we have lots of options. Okay. If you are tech savvy and you want to do this on the computer, feel free to using the program of your choice. If you want to get in there and make squares, duplicate them, and then use those squares to form your name, that's one option. If you are not tech savvy or you just want a break from the computer, this is your chance to step away and get some hands on time using whatever you have in your house that are squares. It could be something that you already have that's made. Think crackers that look like squares, or if you have Scrabble or any other game pieces that are squares, you're going to probably need a lot of them. So make sure whatever it is that you're choosing, you have a lot at hand. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'm not tech savvy and I have nothing in my house that's shaped like squares that have a lot of. Okay, there's other options. If you have a printer, you can go and grab some graph paper and print it off. Or perhaps you already have some graph paper in your house. You can use the squares with that, okay? You don't need to cut them out. You can just draw them on there, and I'll show you in a second. The other thing you could possibly do to get squares is cut them out yourself, okay? And I know what you're thinking. I'm not going to cut out a ton of squares, but if you're like me, you probably have a lot of this junk mail that you get, a bunch of ads and stuff. If you don't have any yet, you already threw it away. You'll probably get some during the week. So any kind of paper you have at your house will work. If you have printer paper, construction paper, I have legal pads all over the place, any kind of paper that you have. I'm going to show you real quick just a very, very fast way to get lots of squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you with this just junk ad that I have here. I'm just going to start folding. I'm going to try my best to keep it as neat as possible. But keep in mind when you're calculating area, the squares should be the same size. Now, just sitting here folding this paper, I'm obviously not using any type of tools as far as rulers go or anything like that. So I understand that if you're making your own squares out of paper, they're probably not going to be perfect squares, and that's okay. So when you get it down to about this size, we're going to start cutting. So keep in mind when you're folding and folding and folding, the more you fold it down, the thicker it's going to get, and it's going to be kind of hard to cut. So a couple of different things. One, I wouldn't fold it down too much, but the other thing is you may need help with a parent for this. And when you get it down to a pretty good size, you're simply going to cut around all four sides. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us, and as you're cutting it, we want to make sure that it is as square as best as possible and not a rectangle. So you may need to adjust your cut some. But when you do that, you're left now with a stack of lots of free little squares, again, roughly the same size. So that's an option as well. There's lots of ways you can do this. So when you know what you're going to do and how you're going to get your squares, then it's time to actually spell out your name. So show you an example here. Again, if you have grid paper and you want to go this route, I'm going to show you an example. I just did my son's name, Dax. So I just simply spelled his name out in the shapes. Okay. If you are using something else that you're actually like kind of working with, whether it's the paper or Scrabble tiles, anything like that, you're again just going to kind of lay it out. I just did his name again. This is really getting a little confused about which way to show you guys. So here it is again. I glued it on here simply so I could show it to you by holding it up like this. Glue tape, it's not necessary. You can just simply put the squares down on your table. And then what you're going to do is you need to have something underneath each letter identifying what the area is and what the perimeter is. And then after that, you take a picture of it to submit it. It can be wiped away. Eat the crackers, throw the paper away, whatever it is. It's not something that needs to be saved at that point once you have all your stuff. So let's talk though about area and perimeter for each letter. Okay. So we know that the area is the inside of the shape, and what we're going to call these are irregular polygons instead of our letters at the moment. And you have lots of different strategies. Now, you'll notice that when I did it, I simply used kind of one line of squares. Feel free to make this as big as you want, given the amount of squares that you have. If you want to kind of do 2 rows going up and 2 rows here, you can do that. You can make the letters thicker and bigger if you want, as long as you have the squares for that. So when it's time to figure out area, you have different strategies to use. We have the simple option of counting squares, and you're just simply at that point counting how many are in each letter. Remember, when you write it down, I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer here so you can kind of see. Remember, area is measured in square units, so make sure that you're labeling that correctly when you write it. If you chose to make your letters kind of on a larger scale, a little bit bigger, and you do kind of have like those 2 rows, if you don't want to use the counting strategy because it might take you a while, feel free to use those other strategies that okay? If you want to kind of do some decomposing and find the area of each section, and then add them all together, this is whatever strategy works best for you, okay? Now, let's talk perimeter. And for perimeter, I'm going to switch to my smaller one. So remember, perimeter is the outside of the shape, okay? And if you can kind of see, remember when I just did P and A, it's okay to abbreviate. You don't need to write the words, especially for every single letter. Notice that one is just measured in units. It's just the length, okay? So you're looking at the outside. I do want to do a quick little mini lesson here on perimeter because as third graders, we understand perimeter is the outside of the area. Well, if you'll notice with 2 of my letters, the D and the A, they have holes in the middle, okay? This goes a little bit beyond our 3rd grade math in that we really don't deal with shapes like that when calculating area. So just to kind of give you a little mini lesson, when you have an irregular polygon like that and there's a hole in the middle, you would actually calculate those completely separate. You would have the perimeter for the outside, then you would have the perimeter for the inside, okay? It's not something that you would find the 2 and add them together. You keep them completely separate. So again, keeping along the lines of our 3rd grade math, I'm asking for the outside of the shape. That's the minimum. If you want to challenge yourself and if you want to find both perimeters, the outside and the inside, you can, but remember, label them separately. Don't find the 2 and add them together. Keep them completely separate, okay? So that's really about it. You're just going to make your name however you can in squares, and then for every single letter, you're going to find the area and the perimeter, okay? I do want to talk real quick about the letters because they look kind of funky, especially when you're making them with squares. I made my D where it kind of came in, so it didn't look so much like an O, but I understand as you're making them, sometimes your letters could look like a couple different, okay? And that's okay. We'll know what you mean, okay? You'll notice when I did my big poster on this one, I chose to actually do a lowercase d and an uppercase X, or in the A. It looks kind of crazy because the letters actually look like different sizes. It's okay. You're going to find as you're doing your name, you might think it's easier to do lowercase letters. You might find it easier to do uppercase letters, maybe a combination of the 2. It's okay, however you decide to do it. So find your squares, spell your name, and then finding the area and perimeter of every single letter, okay? And again, work with what you have, but I'm sure you can be creative and find those squares somehow. I'm excited to see what you guys do. I can't wait to see it. Good luck, be creative, and have fun, okay? Bye, guys.